Alright, so we have to talk about this, which is very unfortunate because I've been enjoying MK1 a ton recently. I feel the game has only been getting better, it's only been improving with quality of life, with skins, with content and towers, like it's just been getting better, but we have some unfortunate news for Mortal Kombat 1. So I just want to give you guys everything and then I'll give you my thoughts after. So let's just dive right into this. So Fate Unknown is a very credible MK1 leaker. They have been right about a lot of the things they said, especially in the pre-release time of MK1, and even after the game's launch, he has been right about some things, like with DLC characters, who was coming first, etc, etc. So he is a very credible insider, and this is what he is saying today about Combat Pack 3 and its potential cancellation. So Combat Pack 3 and a second story expansion were planned, all cancelled recently. No more characters after Combat Pack 2. A cameo or two might make it since there has been work done on them, but I don't know yet. And this reply says thanks for the info, any ideas why they cancelled it? And then Fate Unknown says Chaos Reigns sold poorly. So this is what was said by Fate Unknown, the credible MK1 leaker, about Combat Pack 3. Here we have a reply from Ice Cream I wanted to pull up, because this obviously seems very weird. Ed Boon has been saying forever, even recently with Chaos Reigns, he did an interview saying that this game would have further support past year 2. And that can still be the case here, and they can continue to support MK1 past year 2 and just not give us a combat pack or story expansion. But like with the idea of what Ed Boon was saying, that was our assumption, right? That a second story expansion would come with Combat Pack 3, and then who knows, we could have even gotten a Combat Pack 4 and another expansion and etc, etc. So this person here, Ghostface for MK1, said, my main counter to Fate's claim is Ed himself said more characters are coming after Chaos Reigns, which he did, and then here's like a direct quote, and again, we're going to continue doing more updates, more skins, more cameos, more characters, and stuff like that. And then in reply to that, Ice Cream is saying here, that's what is crazy to me. I'm 50-50 and somewhat hope Fate is wrong this time around. Ed has gone on record to say there's more coming, but Ed has also said the support for MK11 was going to be their longest yet, but it turned out to be their standard 2-year support plus a couple months extra of silence. At the same time, it's kind of scary because even before MK1 even launched, Fate confirmed the roster number, but Dominic, story director, later contradicted what he said in an interview. But turned out Fate was right all along, WTF. And yeah, this is when Dominic is saying that there are 24 characters on the roster, which obviously ended up not being the case. So with that laid out, that is pretty much the situation we are in right now, but I want to bring one thing to your guys' attention before I say my thoughts, and that is this. I believe this is the Warner CEO or some type of higher up, it's something like that. Warner Bros will focus on 4 franchises when it comes to developing games: Batman and DC, Mortal Kombat, Harry Potter, and Game of Thrones. This was very recent on the 7th, and this does say Mortal Kombat. So does that mean that we're in the clear? And like, it kind of does, but that doesn't make the very real reality of Chaos Reigns not selling well, you know, any less true. Huge shout out to friend of the show, Quan Cheesy, but he made this very good point here about the price of Chaos Reigns. This is something that was a major issue since it ever got confirmed and like announced, and that was that this was not going to be separated. You have to buy all of these characters in the combat pack that don't even include cameo fighters for Combat Pack 2, at least not yet, with Mortal Kombat 1 Chaos Reigns, the story expansion itself. You can't buy the two separately in any way right now, except for buying, I believe, the MK character separately, which they added later on. They didn't even have that on launch. And so for some people, you know, they don't want T1000 or Conan, or maybe they don't want Ghostface, or maybe they don't even care about the Combat Pack and just want the story expansion, but that is literally impossible. You cannot buy the two separately as of right now, and you have to pay the big 50 for both of these things combined, and we all know how Chaos Reigns is. As someone who really enjoys Mortal Kombat 1 and enjoys NRS story modes even with their faults, like their extreme faults, like Chaos Reigns is, the fact of it not selling well for the price alone is something that we need to consider, and then on top of that, the content of the story mode wasn't that insane. Even compared to the MK1 Part 1 story mode, it was not good. It was just not good. So if people didn't want to spend this $50 right on launch and wait for a sale or something, even then they might have seen that like people don't like this. It's very bad. People don't like the ending, or people do not have good thoughts about even the DLC characters like Sector Cyrax, even the noob design or anything like that, the guests, etc. Especially online in like the vocal Twitter community or vocal other communities with like Mortal Kombat 1 being talked about online. It isn't in a positive light. It really isn't a lot of the time. And that spreads. That's going to deter people from buying it, and that's if they even can afford this $50 price tag on this thing. And again, the price tag doesn't really have to do with NRS as far as I am aware, and that is another WB issue. But with this in mind, I would not doubt that WB saw how Chaos Reigns sold, because people aren't paying this price tag for this story expansion and combat pack, and was like, no, we are not doing a second combat pack, just work on Mortal Kombat 2. Because again, keep this in mind, Mortal Kombat games are going to be made at WB. That is something they do still want to do, but that doesn't mean that they have to support Mortal Kombat 1 with big story expansions and combat packs, especially when those resources can be allocated to a new release, and they are practically guaranteed free money with every new Mortal Kombat game. Updating a game that already doesn't have a great reputation and making dumb decisions like this by like bundling these two together, like I think Quan Cheesy here said, yeah, the expansion shouldn't have been that bad, there should have been relevant guests, and it shouldn't have been bundled. It should not have been bundled. The story expansion was definitely not up to par with, even in my opinion, with the first MK1 story. And that's like regardless of my enjoyment. I think some people get me wrong and just don't realize that I just love Mortal Kombat. If I get any new content with the characters I love, I'm going to be very happy. I find it very easy to enjoy things, but it is quite obvious how disconnected this felt from MK1, how the narrative was just non-existent and it was pretty much slop and misdirected ideas and a very inconclusive ending that was kind of retconned by its own tower endings for the DLC characters. Like it was not smart, right? It was not smart. And on the topic of guest characters, I know who Conan and T1000 is from like my childhood, but they are not people I resonate with today, you know, like I do with like Homelander or Omni-Man, or not really Peacemaker, but even Peacemaker is a more relevant and modern guest that brought popularity to Mortal Kombat 1. And we see that right now with Ghostface as well, because he's such an icon for people of like older ages and younger ages. But and I'm not trying to again shit on these guests, because you guys know how I feel about guests in Mortal Kombat in general. I feel like any guest is normally a good guest because it's going to bring that fandom like into this game. But with the success of Combat Pack 1 and those modern characters, it is a bit weird to just go straight back to these like old movies like they did with MK11 and how NetherRealm loves to do, you know, these old men that just make this game. I think that's a very valid thing, that if these choices were maybe a bit more exciting, maybe this would have sold more. But again, you can't make a Combat Pack that is going to be bought by everyone with 3 different guests, especially when you bundled it with the story expansion, or like people want to buy these things separately. They're not all just made of money. Like WB is fucking so bad with the way that they handle Mortal Kombat, and they're pushing people away, like actually genuinely. Like this is a real thing, and there's so many people that I even know that bought MK1 and maybe fell off the game like a few months in, but didn't even know Chaos Reigns released. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Like it's absolutely insane, and these are all valid points. Again, shout out to Quan Cheesy. My guess would be, especially with this in mind that I talked about, is that a new Mortal Kombat game is in the works in some way, and that's if like Combat Pack 2 isn't even over, right? So we still have Conan, T1000, and then maybe cameos like Ed Boon said, but who knows with what Ed Boon said, if any of that is going to be real now. Ed Boon also said that MK1 was not a sequel to MK11 in the story mode back then during the launch of MK1, and we know how the story mode ended up being for that. But again, WB just does care about money, so they are going to be guaranteed money and guaranteed success with a new release of a new game, whether that's Mortal Kombat 2 and they continue the story, because like that's something I'm very sad about, is like this era ending. Not that like this era is the most extravagant thing of all time, because we know it's not, but I do enjoy the new era and I want to see it at least end conclusively. If there was like multiple story expansions, like a second and a third one maybe to end this timeline, or just they bleed on MK2, which might be the case now. But who knows? For all we know, they're working on a Shaolin Monks remake or Fire and Ice or something like that. But I think it's safe to say that NRS is working on Mortal Kombat games. It's just that WB saw the sales of this thing that they just jacked up and weren't thinking about, because, you know, they just care about corporate greed, and now are ending development for the potential future that Mortal Kombat 1 had. Now, this doesn't make me feel like, oh, I just hate this game now and stuff like that, like it's so dead or anything like that, really, because my enjoyment of the game is going to be here regardless of its like inevitable future. The idea of it not having any future story expansions or combat packs isn't like killing the vibe for how I feel about the game, right? I am more so just disappointed in the fact that NetherRealm is owned by WB, because it's like they created the issue themselves. If I had to give my genuine opinions, I do not believe that the guest character choices and like, I guess how quote unquote bad MK1 Chaos Reigns story was is the sole factor here driving the potential cancellation of Combat Pack 3 and a second story expansion, or even potentially further support of MK1. I feel that again, it is a WB created issue, and now they're just trying to solve it with a different issue for us fans. It was their choice to bundle the combat pack with the story expansion and then price it as high as they did, and I feel like that is deterring fans more than the potential like word of mouth of how bad the game is, if that's what you want to call it. That is my genuine opinion, because with that same logic, wouldn't like MK11 Aftermath success also be null and void, I guess? At least that's the kind of way I'm thinking about it now. And I more so am just very sad at the fact that this era is ending. The potential support, if Chaos Reigns was better, right? Like obviously it wasn't, but if Chaos Reigns was much better and more in tune and in line with the first Mortal Kombat 1 story mode, then I would have been very excited for a second story expansion and a third and more combat packs and just expanding this timeline and having a long-term support Mortal Kombat game, because I feel the fundamental gameplay of MK1 and the presentation, like the vibe in the world that they're building here, was already something I very much so enjoyed. And I still have like all the passion to do the analysis videos or care about this world, etc., even if it feels that it's coming to a close within the confines of MK1. Because again, unless they're doing something like a Shaolin Monks or a Fire and Ice or a 3D era remake or something like that, then even with a new Mortal Kombat game, they will more than likely continue the story mode that they've built here. So really, it's not like there's going to be a change of quality or a change of story presentation or any of that, unless of course like there is throughout these years. But what I'm trying to say is their goal is that, oh, it didn't sell well because we overpriced it. Let's force them to make a new game because we know a new game will sell like hotcakes regardless of what we put in that game. So even if MK2 is a continuation of this crazy timeline story thing that everyone's blaming it on and has another 4 random guests from 1950s movies, I don't think that that means MK2 is going to sell bad, if that makes sense. I feel that the corporate greed is making them jump the gun here, and the community, obviously, that had major distaste with Mortal Kombat 1 already up to this point, is now saying like a kind of I told you so, or more so like a yeah, this was expected to happen, and I think that's very valid too. It's just I feel there is a more apparent root cause of this all, and that is WB's practices with prices, with even you could say the skins, with the time that they gave them even for MK1, because could you imagine if it launched with the Towers of Time and some of the quality of life features that they've added, or things like the replay mode or like Invasion's quality of life, the skin prices if they were $5 from the start, stuff like that. I just feel there are so many decisions that are very apparently done through WB, and now here we are again with WB changing the trajectory of Mortal Kombat, playing with the fans because they have the power to do so, and they created an issue by overpricing this and giving us the bare minimum for it, and probably giving NRS the bare minimum time or something along those lines for making the product itself. And that doesn't change the writing quality or whatever. You know, I'm not the biggest Dominic fan in the world either. I would love to get more Mortal Kombat 1, and I am very sad if this is the ending for this game's lifespan. But again, I don't think that this means full support of the game will be stopping. I would imagine that even if this is completely true, we will still be getting premium shop skins, we will still be getting, of course, the Invasions refresh, and then potentially new skins that they still haven't given us from like the story mode, hopefully. And then even maybe new game modes or something like that, although I would feel that that's probably less likely if a combat pack and a story expansion are not on the table either. I feel this is a very easy situation to get all up in arms about, and super hyper worried about the future of the franchise, but I don't think the franchise is really what's at stake here. It's more so the practices that are going to continue on regardless of the story narrative or regardless of the guest characters they choose. You know what I mean? Like, this is solely based off of who owns the license, who is able to maneuver the license of Mortal Kombat and treat it the way they are. For example, we have things like Mortal Kombat 2, the movie, coming out next year, late next year, I believe, and they could have easily done some type of cross promotion. A friend of the show, Marquise, was talking to me about that earlier, and like, it would have been so smart, because it's like WB does want to continue supporting Mortal Kombat as one of their core fundamental franchises, or at least as one of their fundamental games, yet still will never put any effort in to treat the game properly and just give Mortal Kombat what it needs to be at the bare minimum successful. It doesn't take much to sell Mortal Kombat. It's going to sell regardless, and that's the sad thing about it, is it's a blessing and a curse, because here they know that. They are very knowledgeable of the fact that it'll sell regardless of what they do, and that's why this will continue to happen. And this is where I start to really have issue with this, because it's like, no matter what, I want to consume more Mortal Kombat, and I liked MK1. Like, I know a lot of people don't, but there are some people that do, and the fact that I want to continue supporting what Mortal Kombat is doing, but as long as we keep supporting it under this publisher, these type of things will continue to happen, and you just want to enjoy the game. We kind of have to take a stance or take action in that way to get something done. Otherwise, this will continue to happen, and that's the sad part of it, is that's super unrealistic with the popularity of Mortal Kombat. People love to swear up and down that Chaos Reigns' success, or rather Chaos Reigns' failure. Oh, it's due to woke and due to bad characters and bad story, which could definitely play into it. But again, we are still going to be getting slapped around by WB and the way we are now, as that seems to be the biggest glaring issue, at least to me, if we continue to support it. And that's all we're gonna want to do, because it's Mortal Kombat and we're Mortal Kombat fans. Like it is such a sad situation to be in. I do have so many thoughts as for what this means for the future of the story narrative of the franchise, of the characters they're going to keep around, how guests are going to work, like all of that kind of thing. Although it's either that this means really nothing outside of the fact that they're just moving on so they can have bigger sales for the work that they're putting in, and that's the end goal of this, and we're not going to see some type of major change in the way Mortal Kombat is made, even narratively or anything like that. But it's just a lot to try and think of right now and sit on. Just, I blame WB wholeheartedly. I feel that their corporate greed is part of the, or at least the main reason in my head as to why Chaos Reigns didn't sell, and it isn't solely the content of what was in there. And I will have to sit on this longer to really just like collect my thoughts on it, because like for a lot of people, again, the uproar today is just that, oh, Mortal Kombat's dead now, like that's it, that was the nail in the coffin. And like, no, because they're still supporting Mortal Kombat. We have the movie next year, probably another animated film coming up. So maybe if NRS is working on something that's a bit different, like a Shaolin Monks remaster or something along those lines, we can see a change in the trajectory of how Mortal Kombat's going. Because even with Mortal Kombat 1, we didn't get a lot of like physical media. Like we barely got a few Funko Pops and one figure, like one poster. Like there really wasn't a whole lot in the entire grand scheme of it all. Like this is, my brain is jumbled from like how I feel about this. I'm gonna have to collect my thoughts, and maybe I will talk about this again at a later date. It's just very unfortunate. It's very sad. And again, a lot of people are saying, I told you so, I told you so. And I don't even think it's about that, because we all have a common enemy here, and that is Warner Bros. It is a common enemy. There's fan enjoyment or fan distaste. That's not at issue here, I don't really think. Because the fan distaste is created from the fact that they don't want to spend $50 for something that wasn't worth $50, you know what I mean? Or something they couldn't just buy separately. Like, I think it's a lot simpler in terms of fundamental what these issues are and why this is happening. And some people are just using, of course, their opinions to blow it out of proportion in some ways. But either way, that's my thoughts on the situation as of right now. Let me know your guys' thoughts on the potential cancellation of Combat Pack 3 and a future story expansion. I hope it's just wrong. Like Ice Cream was saying earlier, I just hope it's wrong and Fate Unknown maybe heard of some type of cancellation, or Fate Unknown is literally just Ed Boon and he's saying this so that they can have a really big release for the second story expansion. Like, I have no idea. Obviously, I'm going to be coping until then. I hope it's not true, and it sucks, but that is where we are with it right now. I appreciate you all so much for watching. Make sure you all stay safe and stay hydrated. I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.